this video we're going to make the world a little more interesting by creating a landscape, because it's kind of a blend right now. So let's start by deleting these floors. We don't need them anymore. And let's go to the landscape creation window, which is over here in the top left, the third tab. So I'm going to zoom out a little. This is the landscape we're creating. This is just a template right now, not the actual landscape. You can see that the landscape consists of a whole lot of large squares, which are then subdivided into even smaller squares. We're not going to need a large landscape like this, so I'm just going to reduce the section size for starters to 31 by 31 quads. And now, as you can see, the squares that were pretty big have become smaller. And then I'm going to reduce the total number of squares to say 4 by 4. So 4 and 4. And this looks more like the size we can work with. Remember that we're over here somewhere with the camera, so there's no need to have a huge landscape behind us. So I'm just going to move this forward a little. Let's see, can be a little more. That looks good. And now I'm going to select a material, and the starter content we added at first contains a whole lot of materials. And materials are like stuff that is applied to meshes in the game, like the cube. And for now I'm just going to select the grass. And then I'm going to click Create. So as you can see, we are have now created a landscape and are now in sculpting mode. And there are a whole lot of tools we can use to sculpt the landscape. We have a sculpting tool to raise and lower the land, a smoothing tool, flatten, ramp, erosion, hydro erosion, noise, etc. For now, I want to create a mountain range and create the idea that we're in some sort of valley. So I'll just reset these brushes to the defaults. And then this looks rather large, so I'm going to reduce the brush size. Something like this looks good. And I'll make our mountain range over here. And just create a nice little valley of some sorts. Remember, we can always press play and then see how it looks. Well, this looks pretty good to me. Just this thing has sunk into the ground, so we need to fix the starting point, but we'll do that later. I'm going to create some mountains in the background. I'll make a larger brush and make the tool strength bigger. So let's just create some mountain here. This looks pretty good to me. Play. Yes, we have a nice mountain in the background. Gonna create another one on the right. Just play around a little, see what you like. You can of course spend hours making all this. Just going to create a nice simple landscape. So I will show off some of the other tools. We have a hydro erosion tool, and we can use this to simulate rain. So I'm just going to point and click on these places. So it will just add some hard to see, but if it's missing, it doesn't feel natural. Not a lot of changes, but let's press play. And we have a little thing over there. Well, it looks pretty good already. I'm a very bad landscaper, I think, so I'm just going to accept this as it is. Let's move our starting point. It's currently below the ground, probably. Going to move it up a little, so I can just see it. Yeah, now when we press play again, it looks good. This can go a little higher. Stop. Looks fine. So the thing is, it's all grass, and to add other types of land, we can use the paint tool, but there is no target layers. So we need to create a material to apply to our landscape, which is a special landscape material. But first of all, I will show you the basic material, example material. So what's a material? If we apply this material, we can just drag it into the world and apply it to something. Or we should be able to just drag it on top here. Let's see. Yes. So now it's recalculating this material. And if we look closely, you can see that it's now all turned to stone. And we can drag another one. And we have to drag it over here to the right. Again, recompiling. And well, now it's all turned to stone. So what are these materials? I'm just going to open this one. I get rid of this. So this is a material. It looks pretty similar to the Blueprint editor. Just that we're working with textures and the likes. So this material is pretty complex, and the material we're going to make for the landscape will be a whole lot simpler. But the basic idea is that you take a couple of textures like this. This is the true color. And for example, this is a normal map, which defines the height. So over here on the left, you can see that there's a real depth to the stones. And when I would remove this normal map, it's gonna have to recalculate again. And now there's a whole lot less depth to it. Just add it back. So this is the basic idea of a material. It are calculations and transformations done by the GPU when drawing a certain shape. So we're going to create our own material to use in the landscape. don't save the changes. I'm gonna go back to the content. I've created a folder called materials, and in here I'm gonna right click and click create a new material. I'm going to call it m_landscape. So the M is for material, and now I'm going to create a landscaping material, and I will start by right clicking and searching for landscape and add a layer blend node. And I will add a couple of layers. And the first layer we're going to use is a grass layer. And the second layer we're going to use is gravel. And the third layer is going to be rock. And this may seem a little fake, but I'll just continue with creating this. I'm going to attach it to the base color. And then I'm going to drag in a couple of textures into this material. I'll open the window through Window Content Browser. I'll open Content Browser 2. And this is right now at the bottom. It may be possible that it's somewhere else for you, so just drag it to the bottom. And we go to Starter Content, Textures. And now we can search for some textures. So the first one is the grass texture. Just drag it in. And take this and put it on the grass layer. The second one is our gravel, so I'm just gonna search for gravel. And make sure you get the _D for the normal color. And the third one would be our rock. And just take a nice rock. I like the color of basalt. Just drag it in here and put it on the rock layer. And then there's one more thing we need to add for the landscape, which is a landscape layer cohort node. And this is sort of just contains the location in the landscape that will be transformed with the texture, and it all sounds pretty complex, and I myself, I'm not sure I totally understand everything that's going on here. But the basic idea is that we have a couple of layers, the grass, the gravel and the rock. They all have their own texture, and this coordinate node just defines where on the landscape this texture is, so you can get nice repeating textures. So just save this. And we can go back to our world, and the material we've just created is over here. Drag it over here on the right. And then it's compiling, and now it's all black. And we can start painting these layers now through the landscaping tool, the painting tab. And then we can use these layers we've just created to paint. And before we can paint on each layer, we need to create a layer info object. So that is done using the plus button over here. Just reset it. Okay. So now we can create a layer info object. Just select the weight blended layer. and I will create a new folder in the root called maps, and then I will stick to the default name. Grass layer info is fine, and I will do the same for the gravel. Select our maps folder, gravel layer info, and then select our rock. Maps, rock layer info name is fine. Okay, so now we have 3 layer info objects, which are just objects used by the engine, nothing to worry about. And we can now select, on the left here, we can select these layers and start painting. So the first thing I'm going to do is apply a gravel everywhere. Just let it, so everything, oh, that's a little too much. Everything has a little bit of gravel, because we're up in the mountains and the grass is not growing that well. There's a lot of gravel in between the grass. So now when we look closely, you can see that everything has a little bit of grass and a little bit of gravel. I'm just going to add the grass back here a little. And now when I press play, everything has a little bit of gravel in between. Then I am going to make the tops of the mountains in the background rock. Just going to create a strong tool. So this needs to recalculate the rock, how it looks. Just add it everywhere. And we can't even see the bottom of the mountains here, so it's not really a problem if you paint a little too much. So let's press play. Now the mountains in the background are all rocky. And then I'm going to add a little bit of gravel in between again, everywhere. So just, well, now it's recompiling again. Too much. Little less strength. So now everything has a slight gravelly feeling. Also going to add gravel over here. And then make some rocky points with a small brush. Okay, like this. As I told you, I'm not very good at this, so you can probably create much better stuff than I can. So, anyway, these are some of the landscaping tools. I'm just going to rebuild the lighting. It's taking longer because there's more to be calculated. Press play. And now, well, it looks decent enough to me. I know it's not pretty, but it works for me. So, I'll see you in the next video, where we're gonna make factories and, well, see what we can do to explode them. See you then.